But first, would the bin strike be over if it was in London, not Birmingham? 020 7862 2222 is the number. Birmingham City Council says it's on track to clear, I can't believe this, by the way, a backlog of rubbish by the weekend, despite the ongoing dispute with bin workers. They've been on strike more than a month, thousands of tonnes of waste piling up on the streets, all kinds of people then fly tipping on top of it. But we're asking, if the strike was down south, if it was in London, would it have been cleared up by now? Take a little look over here. Let's take, here we are, a classic picture of the 2025 Birmingham bin strike. There we go. Let's just isolate the bags here for a second. So we'll rip them out of the photo and let's move them to London. We'll grab a postcard, shall we? Like a classic London. Here, let's take that one there. OK, right, Westminster, Parliament Square. And so there's the question for you, right? Simple question. If the bin strike came anywhere near Westminster and you had this scene in front of the Houses of Parliament, would it be settled in a day? That is the question. Because obviously there is national prestige wrapped up in London. You've got the black cabs and the red buses and whatnot. Birmingham less so. And so somehow nationally, and particularly at Westminster, they just decide, oh, it's a long way away. They literally seem to decide it's a long way away. You put it in London, where you've got Tower Bridge and buses and so on, MPs say, as an MP, I cannot allow this. They will not allow it. And it's really interesting whether there's a lack of national impetus as a result. Now, this was the bike I cycled in on this morning, a hire bike called a Lime bike, these green ones. When I parked my bike, I saw this. I thought, London's not immune from this. Those are prawns, by the way. I'm pretty sure those are king prawns that have been left by somebody. It's disgusting. It wouldn't take much in London to get back to the scene we saw in the 70s. In the 70s, we had the Winter of Discontent. This was Soho. Can you believe that? This brought down the Jim Callaghan Labour government in 79. Look at that lady cycling there. So London's always on the verge of this, but somehow, for 50 years, they haven't allowed it to happen. And maybe it's different. Bobby, do you think?
The thing is, I think there's historical precedent for London issues, meaning that things get taken and dealt with. So in 1858, there was something known as the Great Stink of London, where in the Thames there was a smell of like human waste and industrial effluents, and it went right up to the House of Parliament, Westminster. And as a result, because it was in London, in Westminster, near the politicians, they immediately took action and they called in the civil engineer, Sir Joseph Bazalgette, and he developed this incredible sewage system, which now, to be honest, is now being overhauled, but like 120, 50 years of that sewage system. So I think when things impact London, impact politicians, then they do take action. So I think
it's an interesting story because Bazalgette, they always say, took all the sewage out of London. His grandson was a guy called Peter Bazalgette, who produced Big Brother.
Yes.
He put all the sewage back in. That's always the joke. Anyway, Carole, what do you think? London's different.
No, it's not different. You just showed pictures of London during the Winter of Discontent. It did not escape it, and it would not escape it now. You know, this strike has got nothing to do with the city it's in and everything to do with the union who is staging the strike. We know this. It's the Unite Union, you know, and they're already encouraging other unions across the country to go on strike. So they're very likely encouraging their members in London to go on strike too. I think the difference would be if there was rubbish outside Buckingham Palace. What I don't understand about Birmingham is why the council just doesn't get bin loads, gets bin trucks and gets the stuff cleared.
I'll tell you a couple of reasons. The one reason is that the bin workers in Birmingham have been blocking
more trucks.
depots.
Get more trucks. Get them from elsewhere. And the other thing is, you know, the government made a big play the other day of sending in the army. They didn't send in the army. They sent in a couple of office workers to help, actually military strategists to help shift the rubbish. So don't do that. Send in the army and clear this. No, let me finish the point.
No, I want to get an update.
Birmingham is a health hazard now. And
Yes,
we can't have a situation where people's health is in danger because of that.
But when they put I'm just saying, when they bring in trucks from other places, the bin workers in Birmingham walk slowly in front of them to stop them progressing. So they've got almost a civil order thing there. The police are going to have to get stuck into that. Let's get an update from Birmingham. Local resident Basmin Khan is back with us out on the street. How are you doing, Basmin?
I'm okay, thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm okay. Now, last time you were with us, you showed us some false teeth that have been thrown away.
Absolutely. There's a diverse amount of rubbish around. So you name it, it's there.
Did you see the owner of the... I don't know if we can see pictures of the false teeth that we saw last... There we are.
Oh.
Can you see bottom right? They look as if they might have fallen out by accident. You never found the owner?
Never found the owner at all, no.
So what are you seeing now, Basmin?
Well, let me turn the camera around for you, and if I can show you, this has happened within the last 2 days. And if you fancy, Jeremy, a pair of shoes for you?
Oh, no. It's fly tipping gone crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's given people an incentive to fly tip. I know you can try and tackle it, but, people are intimidating. They don't listen. They drive off. So really, it's a losing battle at the moment.
Oh, I see. You mean if you intervene and challenge them, it gets nasty?
Yes. Yes.
How are you feeling about it?
Oh, awful. I mean, I'm hoping that there'll be a resolution soon. And I mean, listening to your question, if this was in London, absolutely. I mean, London is home to key government institutions. Any disruption would have an immediately high profile. And of course, the politicians wouldn't stand for it. I mean, it would have to be cleared pretty swiftly. I think a resolution would have come much sooner.
Thank you, Basmin. Take care. See you next week. Hopefully they'll be clearing it up by then.
Thank you.
Thank you. William in Renfrewshire, would it be allowed if it was in London?
Good morning, Jeremy. Of course it wouldn't be. London comes before anywhere else in Britain.
So what, they just decide special treatment?
They always get special treatment, and I get angry all the time listening to your panellist, Carole Malone. It seems her whole objective is to attack ordinary working people. Let's go back to the old days. The way with unions have all be serfs, and we'll just do as we're told, like Carole would like.
William, what about in the winter of discontent when London had as much rubbish as every other city in the country?
That's right. The governments could have came forward and offered the solutions. What they do is they try to starve workers out. They did it with the miners, they did it with other people. And you're a typical example of how ordinary people who formed the health service, who brought in all sorts of things that benefited ordinary people, are now getting tagged with people
How
with
much do you think
big
the health
wages.
service is
You're sitting
benefiting
there,
ordinary
sorry,
people?
you're sitting there with a big wage.
Keep shouting,
criticising
William, that's
ordinary
the way.
people, and their wages are getting cut, and you're criticising these people.
So you think the health service is great for working people now, do you?
No, because it's been destroyed by Thatcher and
the Tories destroyed.
Thatcher
Oh God,
Thatcher
so
said when she
predictable.
came into power she would destroy the health service.
So your Labour government is now in charge of the health service. What are
They're
they
not
doing?
my Labour government. I'm a Scottish nationalist. And a
Of course
socialist.
you are. That's
Okay,
I bother about ordinary people, not like you. You bother about the rich people.
Yeah, you do.
Well, I
really
don't know
well.
about that. She brought up in Newcastle, right?
Yeah, he's talking to us. This is Scottish nationalists actually have a go all the time. They're not doing terribly well in Scotland, and Scotland hasn't done very well under Scottish nationalists, William. Your health service is in a mess. Your education service is in a mess. You have a massive drug problem. So don't talk to me
William,
about the
thank you.
gnats.
Thanks for calling. Call again, William. Heidi in Warwickshire, hi.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Hey, okay, well, there we are. Oh, that sounds like a calmer voice. What would you like to say?
Well, I don't think people are jumping on the bandwagon fly tipping. Wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. But you've got to look at, everybody needs to sit around the table when there's a big strike. Because some of the people, like some of the bin men, especially in our area, were there constantly while the pandemic was on. As the nurses were, as a lot of people, the bus drivers, a lot of people. Fair days pay for a fair day's work, and the people need to sit round the table and talk. Jaw, better than war.
But, I mean, the council is now being run by accountants because it went bankrupt. So what do you find that's so interesting about the situation is accountants don't care what people think. They're just simply trying to balance the books. So they've been asked for more money for the bin workers, and they've had a look and they haven't got any because the council's bankrupt.
It is a difficult one.
Yeah.
But if they're bringing in contractors, aren't they? How much are they charging? You need to look at that as well.
Yeah, and you can see, by the way, Carole, do you see what I referred to there about the bin workers walking in front of any private trucks?
I see that, and I do have some sympathy for the bin men themselves. However, when it gets to the situation where this is causing a public health hazard, cats are lying dead in the street because people are putting out rat poison to deter the rats. You have cars that are having their electrical wires chewed through by the amount of rats. People are falling ill because of this.
Of course, it's terrible.
And
Heidi,
we can't have it.
We'll take a break and we'll get back to your calls. Roy is in Wolverhampton. Hello, Roy.
Morning.
What do you think?
It would be obvious they wouldn't allow this to go on in London.
Please.
But one question I'd like to ask, these rats that have suddenly appeared, Have they bred in the 6 weeks that the bin men have been on strike? And
Good
suddenly,
point. Yeah, it's a
the
good
rats
point.
are always there. The rats
They're there,
are
but they've
always
come
there.
out, and it is like Fawlty Towers, this, where it's as bold as you like. They've come out, and they're just basically disporting themselves in public, even being filmed, Bobby.
The rats.
Yes.
They're happy. It's their time to shine. But unfortunately, it's not a good time for the rest of the public.
They're not scared of anything.
And I think,
You've got
again...
one rat. You've got one rat there.
I know, we've shown that rat several times. That's true.
Yes, I know.
The rat's going to have an Instagram account
There's
soon.
more
isn't
than one, Roy. Come on. The residents
Where?
are seeing them all. Where?
Yeah, you know, I mean...
Well, residents
listen,
are
I don't
reported
live in
seeing them. I
Birmingham, I live in
mean,
Wal-
yeah. You don't think the rats are as many as has been reported?
Well, yes, they are. They're always there, though. They haven't suddenly appeared.
Well, no, they have,
thing
Roy,
is-
because they don't come out into the street in full view when the streets are clean. But listen, I've just looked up here because we're talking about breeding them. They can have up to 6 litters a year and 12 pups at a time. So they can breed quite a lot.
And they breed depending on how comfortable they feel. And at the moment, they're getting a feast every day. This is amazing. And what would you
Really
do?
randy when they found out the bin man was on strike then.
Well, the word went around the rat community. Of course it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. The rats are so intelligent, Roy. We've got, in the street I live in, the foxes have learnt to open.
Yes, the bins.
The bins.
Bin
They
lid. Oh, yeah.
literally take the lock off and open them.
Right, I think, again, it just shows, like, when we think about seagulls attacking people in residential areas and foxes now causing chaos,
Yeah.
it's our human impact that's going into their areas. Again, I always think, like, we sometimes demonize rats or seagulls or foxes, but it's our fault. We're encroaching on them. We're causing damage to their environment.
Yeah.
Roy, back to the big question, which is whether, if this was in London, these scenes, we would see it sorted in a minute.
Yes, it would, because Parliament wouldn't have allowed London to go bankrupt for a start off. I mean,
Yeah.
the people...
Can I just say, Roy, can I just say that TfL under Sadiq Khan is 15 billion quid in debt and the government keeps bailing them out. So it's not that they don't run
Well,
on
that's his
debt, they
point.
do.
That's
I
his
know,
point,
I know,
is that when-
I'm telling you, that's the
Right,
thing.
yeah.
He's right about that.
Go on, Roy.
Yes, and what I'm trying to say is that they've gone bankrupt. For what reason? They've squandered all the money they've had, and now they're making the bin men pay for it.
Well,
You can't
Roy-
just keep cutting people's pay. We all know the cost of living is going up.
Roy, I think
To
it's
cut
more...
somebody's
Roy, I'm
pay.
just going
It is
to... On a
more
little factual point, Birmingham has been hit by 2 equal pay cases that have been devastating. And a lot of it is based on the fact that in certain jobs you tend to have male workers, and the bins is a good example. And then female workers in other parts of the council say, well, we're in an equivalent job and we've been underpaid for years. And they've had to pay billions.
There's that, but Roy is right in the sense that that council has spent money on what is not considered services. 14.5 million on school taxis. They've spent something like 380,000 on translation services. They've even spent nearly 60 grand on trauma yoga for people.
Well,
That's not a
If
service.
people are helped by yoga and they've got... What do you mean it's not a service?
I'm sorry, you don't take that when you're paying. People pay council tax not for other people to have yoga.
If someone's
they
got
pay
trauma-
it for their street lights, for their bins. Someone's got trauma that can't be sorted out by your council tax and mine. It should
Well,
be sorted out another way.
Arguably, the people who are the most important in need in Birmingham are those with
I think you're
trauma
playing
who
devil's
can be helped by
advocate.
yoga.
Trauma, yoga
I keep
is
looking at
silly.
Bobby to try and get a word
I think
in.
ultimately Birmingham Council, they can put an end to this. So it's their decision. They're the ones saying we're not going to negotiate. We're not going to offer you the fair pay that
They've
the
tried.
strike.
2 offers, 2 revised
But
offers.
obviously, like, in negotiation, they're trying to underplay the
You know
offer.
this WRC, what's it called?
Oh, the waste control.
Waste control.
Yeah.
It is interesting that the Unite say that role is vital for safety, for safeguarding, and yet it is the only council in the country that has that role. So it can't be that vital.
That role, which is standing at the back of the van and overseeing health and safety, was brought in as a result of the last bin strike. And the sceptics say it was a way you circulate the bin men through that role and it gives them a top up to their salary without actually creating a separate job. And that's now the council has said we're worried that role, A, it's expensive, and B, it does give female workers elsewhere the opportunity to have another go at an equal pay claim, which would be 3. So they're closing that role, and they're closing that role is the issue. And there's only 14 of those posts.
Yes.
But a lot of bin persons were circulating
no
through that
other
post.
council in the country has that. And
that's
let me just read a statement from the council. It says, every employee affected by the removal of the WRCA role could take on an equivalent graded role in the council, LGV driver training or voluntary redundancy. So no jobs lost.
Josephine on Facebook says, of course, it would be over by now if it was in London. Can't have rats as big as cats invading Parliament. Why do you think they've got a cat as number 10 Downing Street? Bob on Facebook says, and also I wonder what are Birmingham's cats doing at the moment, because this should be an absolute party for them.
They're dying because they're being poisoned.
I hope not.
Well, because residents aren't trying to poison them, they're putting them out for the rats.
Bob on Facebook says the new Labour government opened the floodgate when they gave money to the train drivers. Now they can't put the genie back in the bottle. Exactly. Do you think that's true, Bobby, that they settled immediately with the train? The weird one was the train drivers and the doctors as well. And that means basically it's a free-for-all now.
Again, I think all workers should be entitled to fair pay rise. But one sort of misnomer we have in this country is we think that inflation is being fueled by pay rises to workers. Actually, it's more to the big quantitative easing that the government had, or the Bank of England had throughout the 2010s. That's what's fueled the money in the economy, causing inflation. So I always think it's unfair.
I thought it was a post-COVID society reopening.
And that's the second part.
Right.
But I think it's unfair to always penalise the worker and say, it's your pay rise that's causing inflation in this country.
No, well, I've just read out a statement which says they're not being penalised, and that was the revised offer they were given, and Unite said no. And Angela Rayner pleaded with them. Now, she's Unite's big pal. She pleaded with them because she said it was a fair offer. They're not taking it.
We'd love your calls, 0207 862 2222, on all the subjects to come. Later, we are asking if we should boycott